A Republican congressman and his wife are accused of spending $250,000 in campaign funds on themselves and falsifying their financial records. California Representative Duncan Hunter and Margaret Hunter were indicted yesterday.
So we're asking about those allegations from yesterday, and you said you believe
they're completely false. This has been 2 years. You have the most political, you have the most political folks in the U.S. Attorney's Office here that attended a Hillary Clinton fundraiser before they dropped the charges on me two years ago. You have partisan, biased Department of Justice employees that are doing it to Trump. They're doing it to me.
Duncan Hunter was one of the first members of Congress to support the Trump presidential campaign.
This is political, period. This is the U.S. government, what I would call the deep state, or folks in the U.S. government that don't care what the election does. That they want to rig the election their own way because they can't beat me in a real election. So number one, I'm going to have an election. I'm not resigning. I'm not going to resign with a bunch of leftist government folks throwing allegations at me. There's a trial. This means nothing, and the indictment is all they have.
Good morning. There are dozens of charges in this indictment. House Speaker Paul Ryan called them deeply serious and moved to strip Hunter, at least temporarily, of his committee assignments last night. According to the indictment, the couple treated campaign funds essentially like a personal piggy bank after overdrawing their own accounts 1,100 times over the course of 7 years. They allegedly used campaign cash to pay for utilities, school tuition, the theater, trips to Hawaii and Italy, and international travel for nearly a dozen relatives as well. The indictment alleges that Hunter tried to cover up these outlays by disguising them as campaign expenditures. Family dental bills, for instance, were recorded as gifts to a charity called Smiles for Life. At one point, his wife allegedly suggested that a pair of golf shorts be recorded as a purchase for the wounded warriors.
They're trying to win this election. They're trying to beat Trump in the press and not with the election. They're trying to do the same thing to me. That's a new way that Democrats do politics.
When Duncan Hunter told his wife he was planning to buy a pair of shorts but had run out of money to buy them, she allegedly told him to buy the shorts at a golf pro shop so that they could falsely claim later that they were buying golf balls for wounded warriors. Pretty revolting.
And more than $500 to fly the family's pet rabbit across the country.
Pretty revolting.
So I have partisan Democrat prosecutors coming after me, and that should worry everybody. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, or nothing, you shouldn't have politics entered into our law enforcement system. And that's what's happened now with Trump and with me. And I'm sure it's going to play out more with other people. That's why.
The DOJ is politically motivated?
Yes. Are you joking? The DOJ is politically motivated.
I have trust in the justice system, despite what's going on with Donald Trump and Mueller and anti-Republican, pro-Democrat forces within the Department of Justice at the highest levels and the FBI at the highest levels.
Number one, I'm ecstatic to have President Donald Trump as president.
We'd like for the government to present its facts. It's wrong, and this is politics now, unfortunately.
And you're innocent of...
Oh, of course.
Hunter faced 60 counts and initially denied all of them, claiming he was the target of a witch hunt and blamed any misused funds on his wife.
The husband of Miss Hunter actually pointed the finger at her after the initial charges, which is highly unusual.
Are you saying that it's more her fault than your fault?
Well, I'm saying when I went to Iraq in 2003, the first time I gave her power of attorney, and she handled my finances throughout my entire military career, and that continued on when I got into Congress because I'm gone 5 days a week, I'm home for 2. So and she was also the campaign manager. So whatever she did on that'll be looked at too, I'm sure. But I didn't do it.
Former federal prosecutor Jason Ford says it's uncommon for a wife to turn on her husband like this.
Agreeing to testify against her husband, and with the likelihood that details of 5 alleged affairs Hunter had with staffers being aired publicly.
I've got 3 kids, right? I've got a 17-year-old son and two girls. This is obviously hard for them, right? Period. I mean, it's hard for him.
New documents say Congressman Duncan Hunter's eyes wandered almost as soon as he took office in 2009. And he had hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions to, quote, satisfy his desire for intimacy. His personal bank account, meanwhile, deep into the red. The campaign-funded affairs allegedly began in April 2009 when Hunter met a lobbyist the filing calls Individual 14, the congressman eventually moving in with her at her home in the Washington, D.C. area.
I've got 3 kids, right? I've got a 17-year-old son and two girls. This is obviously hard for them, right?
In January 2010, Hunter allegedly spent more than $1,000 for the two to travel to the Hyatt in Lake Tahoe. That relationship ended in April 2012, but later that year, Hunter reportedly found a new mistress at the Republican National Convention in Tampa. Individual 15 worked for a fellow representative.
I've got 3 kids, right? I've got a 17-year-old son and two girls. This is obviously hard for them, right?
Prosecutors say Hunter began sleeping at her place nightly, documenting trips using Uber ride records. Then, in January 2015, they say Hunter began a relationship with one of his own office workers.
I've got 3 kids, right? I've got a 17-year-old son and two girls. This is obviously hard for them, right?
Hunter took her, identified in documents only as Individual 16, his high school-aged relative, and some friends out for pizza. That tab, $352 donated dollars. In October 2015, Hunter began seeing Individual 17, another lobbyist who had organized events for him in the past.
I've got 3 kids, right? I've got a 17-year-old son and two girls. This is obviously hard for them, right?
On October 27th, the two allegedly went back to her home where they engaged in, quote, intimate personal activities unrelated to Hunter's congressional campaign. The documents chronicle one last relationship with a lobbyist in September 2016.
This time with a person described in the indictment as his wife's close friend.
On her way into court, Margaret Hunter did not answer any questions, but one thing was clear: she didn't have a wedding ring on. Both she and her husband, Congressman Hunter, are accused of spending more than $200,000 in campaign funds for personal use. Today, Mrs. Hunter admitted to conspiring with her husband to steal the money. Inside the courtroom, she responded, "Yes, sir," to the judge when asked if she knowingly misused the campaign funds.
Can you prove that you've used personal funds?
We're going to court.
So you think you'll be able
and I'm going to win in court and win my election, and we'll see where we are, right? What I would call the deep state, or folks in the U.S. government that don't care what the election does, that they want to rig the election their own way, because they can't beat me in a real election.
The single most shocking and outrageous political ad I've ever seen. And that's saying a lot. It comes from this man. It's Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter of California. Mr. Hunter, who along with his wife has been indicted for allegedly using campaign funds for personal expenses, is implying his opponent is a terrorist. Campanajjar is a Christian, by the way. And he was raised in San Diego largely by his mother, and that he received a security clearance to work in the Obama White House and the Labor Department. He's been through a background check.
Now, Hunter was indicted last summer. The Republican was still reelected to Congress in November. The tales of 5 alleged affairs Hunter had with staffers being aired publicly. Hunter has now caved.
I'm going to change my plea to guilty. I think it's important not to have a public trial for 3 reasons, and those 3 reasons are my kids. I think it'd be really tough for them.
Former Congressman Duncan Hunter will spend 11 months in federal prison.
It's the end of a long journey for disgraced former Congressman Duncan Hunter Jr. He was sentenced to 11 months in prison and 3 years of supervisory probation.
11 months is a very fair sentence. We're very pleased with Judge Whalen's thoughtful consideration of all of the factors in this case. And as you know, an 11-month sentence was right in the middle of the range that the parties agreed to as part of the plea agreement.
He served parts of Orange, Riverside, and San Diego counties for 11 years in Congress, and now it appears it will all end in disgrace.
What the government likes to do is take away the power from the people that have an election. So let's have an election. Let's go to trial. Then you can all see that, and we'll see who wins. And we'll see whether the people win or the law enforcement Democrat system wins. And we'll see whether the people win or the law enforcement Democrat system wins.
Yeah!